All right. Good morning, everyone. This meeting is called to order at 10:05 a.m. Welcome to the public meeting of the Acadiana Watershed District's Technical Advisory Committee. I'm Keely Bingham, the Watershed Coordinator of the district. The agendas were available at the room's entrance and were made available through the AWD email distribution list and online at planacadiana.org. For our records to reflect your attendance, please sign in the table if you're here physically, or add your name to the chat box if you're attending virtually. The purpose of this public meeting is to consider items established by the agenda. Public input is welcome on these matters. For those wishing to speak in person, please complete the speaker card and present it to ABC staff. Comments or questions will be read aloud during the public comment period. To ensure an orderly meeting, members of the public will speak at the time designated. Each organization may be permitted one representative to speak for 3 minutes on its behalf, and the individual public members are permitted 3 minutes. Thank you very much. Now we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. The Pledge of Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will call roll now. Committee members. Okay, representing Louisiana Soil Water Conservation District, Chip Lockford. So representing the Technical and Freshwater District, Donald Cabrera. I think Mr. Donald said he could maybe join online. They have a big event tomorrow, so we'll see if he joins us later. Representing UL Watershed Flood Center, Dr. Imad. He is not available today. We also have for USDA NRCF, Andrew Combs. He is obviously unavailable. Representing DOTD, Brent Domain.
Present.
Thank you. Representing CPRA, Dion Broussard.
Present.
We have an at-large member, Justin Corning. Present. And then we also had another at-large member, Cassie Lejan, but he's unavailable today. But we have Brad Lambert online, who is attending for Cassidy. He's with Ducks Unlimited. And at-large member, Richard Gregg.
Present.
Right. So call. So I want to give you, it's your meeting minutes review. So normally what we do, the last time we met the Technical Advisory Committee was July 17th. And even though we have, non-voting members, we have the technical committee to look at the minutes presented and make sure it's good so we can submit it to the board. Well, the last meeting was in July, Technical Advisory Committee. Then we had a Acadiana Watershed District Board meeting in August. So the board approved the minutes. So just to know if I could do like a recap of what we did in July. So those minutes are in your packet. We talked about regional project criteria, which I'll give you an update in a second. So the Technical Advisory Committee had revised the changes to our regional project criteria that whenever funds become available, if there's a project or projects the board would like to see happening, use this criteria to objectively evaluate the project and prioritize our projects. We had a couple of updates on the regional watershed model training we had in June. There's the Alexandria to the Gulf study. We're anticipating that the fiscal year funding will be in FY26. We talked about LWI gauges. There were some that are under DOTD. That number had been reduced a bit as the state Louisiana Watershed Initiative had installed gauges. Some funding was available for some of the state agencies have overtaken those gauges. We had talked about, we have our Acadiana Regional Gauge Network project that we're waiting on 2 permit approvals from DENR, I think now Department of Conservation and Energy. Is that correct? Yeah. Okay, you're more tied in. All right, so we have that, and then also a permit from the Army Corps that we're waiting Once we get his permits approved, we can hopefully do a RFQ or RFP and get gauges installed. Talked about sustainable funding for the district, and also increasing community rating system participation. We talked about that a lot. That's one of the goals. If the parishes participate in National Flood Insurance Program, the community rating system, which is an incentive program, it's not the easiest way to get in, but once you're in there, there's certain things you can do and get credit for to reduce premiums on flood insurance for individuals within your municipality or parish. We talked about a regional flood communication system that we're trying to facilitate communication, provide flood-related points of contact to gather information prior to anticipated flood events. Once we can get on a path or decide a path for some kind of sustainable funding, a lot of our goals, that's our foundation, right? And so once we kind of get that, then we can do the goals that we set out for. So that is in the background, just we're not currently actively working on that. Then we also had Allie Olsenowski. She was project manager for the Environmental Defense Fund. This is a program for the Corps. Basically, elevating houses. It's 100% voluntary. Excuse me. There's no cost share. And she talked about that program. And she's also going to be here for the board meeting in November. Who wants to participate? There are certain parishes. I think we had Cameron, Calcasieu, and Vermilion parishes. Those people can participate. I don't know if anyone has any questions on minutes, and it's been a while. But the board did approve those minutes. So the next part of our agenda item after minutes, regional project criteria update, excuse me. So thank you all very much. We submitted the project criteria to the board. The board didn't have any questions, but we had a lot going on the last board meeting to formally vote. And so some of the board members wanted to look at the criteria before they officially voted. So we'll have that vote in November. So thank you all for y'all work. Next slide, please. So we have some really good presentations today. We have there's a project called Hydro Rise Project. I'm going to kind of fill in. This is with Dr. Habib, but Watershed Flood Center couldn't be here today. And so I'm going to kind of give an update. Next slide, please. So the Hydro Rise Project, this is founded by a National Science Foundation. And it's like a project within that project. So let me just give you the overview real quick before we get to this. So Hydro Rise refers to the impacts of hydroclimatic extremes. So the goal of this project was to reduce unequal impacts of climate-driven water hazards, right, in the Gulf region. And they do this by, we call it co-production or co-developing innovative tools and strategies to empower communities, especially those facing rising flood risks, looking at water quality challenges and failing infrastructure. It's a huge project. There's 6 universities, UL, University of Alabama, Jackson State University, Tulane University, Tuskegee University, and LSU. And it's like I said, it's the co-development or we're calling it co-production project. And we're breaking it down to see how we're going to do this. Okay, how you reduce the unequal impacts of climate-driven water hazards. They're looking at social vulnerability, history of disproportionate outcomes, analysis of precipitation extremes, hydro and water quality modeling and impacts on infrastructure. That's going to be considered. Socioeconomic assessment and fiscal cost of adaptation planning. And there's also education and workforce development components. And then we have Louisiana, Alabama, and Mississippi. And there's actually further working groups. These co-production teams are broken down, focusing on certain areas within Louisiana, within Alabama, and Mississippi. And we have Dr. Simone Domain. She's part of that project. She's here, and Dr. Hausman for another project to speak about. But I like when all these projects kind of come together in the work that's being done within our region. So the Hydro Rise project, next slide, please. What we're talking about today, a component of it is that the team is developing within our region, in partnership with our district, a flood hazard vulnerability index for South Central Louisiana. So we're focusing on LWI Region 5. So there is a Center for Disease Control Hazard Social Vulnerability Index indicators. That's on the top left. And the box says this is kind of generalized across hazards. And also it's, developed, for all people in the United States and the state of Louisiana, which it's good data, but we want to get something more focused, I think, or they did within our area. So part of that, creating our own flood hazard vulnerability index, is there's going to be a workshop in Lafayette Parish, and I'm going to send this out through email through the distribution list so you can get that information. The date is sometime next month. And it'll be a workshop from 9 to 12, lunch is provided. And then I guess after the workshop, they'll do 1 hour Zoom follow-up meeting. There's a QR code if you're interested in signing up. But again, I'll send all this information post meeting. So you'll have that. But the QR code is on in your agenda packet. And then it has some flyers by the those documents are by the agenda at the room. So the goal is to partner around local stakeholders to create the index tool that prioritizes factors driving flood vulnerability within our region, specifically South Central Louisiana. So these improved tools, it's specific tools for our region, right? So we can get better information, helping reduce flood risk, and where certain resources can be allocated. So I'm excited about that. But we have these tools that can be unique and specific to our area. They did a good job. Anyone have any questions about this? Like I said, this is a project called Hydro Rise. Many universities, huge project, very, very thorough. It's exciting to be part of it. If you have any questions later, please go email. Oh yes, this is another part of the Hydro Rise project. So we have the unique social vulnerability tool that they're working on. But also let's go to capacity building. So part of the Hydro Rise scope was to provide capacity building to local communities, which is the overall goal of the Louisiana Watershed Initiative. That's literally a grant we're funding by. It's called the Regional Capacity Building Grant. So it ties into this. So UL is proposing to provide training on the use and interpretation of flood risk models. Going back to the Louisiana Watershed Initiative, there was training in June for the watershed models. It was more, slide deck presentation. There's a lot of information. Maybe certain engineers can understand a bit more, but a little harder for maybe planners, local community. And so Dr. Habib and I were talking, so I think there's a need to kind of refine this. So look at a target audience, your model is planners, city parish staff, supporting stakeholders in their region. We can use maybe specific cases that within Region 5, and we can use the locally developed, UL had developed models, and of course, Louisiana Watershed model as well. And so we'd like your input on the training needs for engineers, modelers, and the training needs for us non-engineers. And so we just wanted to kind of put that out there. That's something I'd be interested in. Again, follow up, hopefully, yes. Okay, some people in this room might be interested in as well. So I think that could help the need because, watershed modeling is complex. And that's a lot of things. So maybe we'll have that in the future as well. Next slide, please. Okay, any questions about upcoming training? All right, so we have Simone Domain and Dr. Sharon Housen. I knew I was saying it wrong. Sorry, Sharon. Okay, so we have the Southwest Louisiana and Central Acadiana Resilient Future Project. This is NOAA funded and implemented by Tulane University's Water Institute. It involves all the parishes in the Acadiana Watershed District, LWI Region 5, as well as parishes in LWI Region 4 and Region 6. We also included the indigenous tribes in the region. Okay. The project addresses our changing climate and the impacts to planning, projects, program, and policies. So the 4 Ps, right? Looking through planning, projects, programs, and policies. Dr. Simone Domain is a research assistant professor at Tulane, an environmental sociologist and critical scholar of climate adaptation and disaster resilience. Dr. Sharon Housen is a climate adaptation planner and research scientist with the South Central Climate Adaptation Science Center to focus on climate resilient strategies, community-based and collaborative planning, which we're doing, and tribal sovereignty and self-determination. So I want to welcome Dr. Domingue, Dr. Halsam in person. Thank you all very much for coming, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thanks for having us. And so I'm also on the Hydro Rise project, and I do have a slide that's comparing the two projects because we see them as complementary. And I work very closely with Dr. Habib to make sure that there isn't duplication of effort. I'm originally from Lafayette, so you might be thinking, why is Tulane University interested in this area? But I'm still very connected to the folks here, and knew that this area was really leading the way with regional watershed collaboration. And so we've talked to Kelia, and we also had some folks in the southwestern region of the state that were interested in regional collaboration, and also have been really hard hit by disasters. And so we're really interested in this planning effort. The idea is that we, have funding from NOAA to collaborate, and at the end of the project period, we'll have a plan with regionally supported policies, programs, and projects. And these, we all know, are more likely to receive funding. And hopefully there's those pots of money that can be tapped into. So you can go to the next slide. Okay, yeah, so here is our project area, and like Keely said, it's all the parishes in LWI regions 4 and 5. We have 2 committees in the project. So we have a governance committee, and then we have a community committee. And the idea is to connect these two so that we have, we're talking about governance of for the floodplain, for these multiple watersheds, but we're also working at a very grassroots community level to get input from folks about how they vision what a resilient, we know that sometimes resilience gets overused, but how they see their community into the future, what their concerns are, particularly as it relates to climate hazards. So extreme weather, extreme heat, precipitation, drought, wildfire, tornadoes, all of those hazards. We're also working with tribal nations and tribal organizations as part of the project. And you can go to the next slide. And I'll let Sharon talk a bit about this figure that she developed as part of her work.
Thanks, Simone. And also, thank you, Kelia, for the introduction. As Kelia said, I am with the South Central Climate Adaptation Science Center, which is a mouthful. And the CASC, as we call it for short, is a regional organization that covers Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, and Louisiana. So some pretty different environments, but that is known as the South Central region for the purposes of the CASC. I actually happen to be based in Albuquerque, but have been really enjoying this particular project. Simone and I met through the University of Oklahoma, which is where the CASC is hosted. And I'm a planner by trade. And so that diagram on the left is the climate adaptation planning cycle, which follows essentially a planning cycle overall, starting off with an assessment of current conditions and thinking about what future vulnerabilities are, and then moving into the planning process. And ideally, any planning process also then circles back on itself with an assessment of how successful it was and moves forward into the next round of planning. And when we're doing this with climate, we're looking specifically at what those vulnerabilities are to those hazards that Simone was mentioning. The CASC does climate projections, and they're I am not the climate scientist, but the person who is just wrapping up the latest projections with the latest global models downscaled for the region. And this is something that Dr. Butte is very involved in and leading those as well. So they will make it, that will be better data on what the future precipitation will look like. And so that factors in, but also as Simone was saying, we have a really strong commitment to community engagement in this with the folks who live in the region as well. So we've got a survey that's going out, and at this point, just asking folks about, what's important to them where they live. Given that it's a 20 parish region, the first question is just where do you live? What do you consider your community? But then asking people what's important to them in the community, whether that's the people, the historic places, or parts of the natural environment, or anything else. And then also asking them about their concerns about those hazards. So then, we'll be moving into more of the planning part. And as Simone mentioned, the goal of that is to settle on some projects that are regionally supported, because that helps with any future funding to be able to demonstrate that. Policies, of course, are more often enacted at the local level. So the intent there is to have more of a toolkit of policies and potential programs, maybe educational programs, that would help folks do better with the hazards in the region. So that's mostly the diagram. The other part on the community engagement is to check in, as I mentioned, the survey will ask folks about any hazards that they have concerns about, but we also want to just check in with them about the data and say, tell us about, show them time series graphs with temperatures going up and ask how that relates to their experience. So as we have more of that, we'll have some public facing materials and on precipitation as well. So.
All right, and here's just the hazards and stressors. This is one of the differences with the Hydro Rise project, or ways that it's complementary, is that our focus is all hazard. Of course, flooding is a very large part of the riskscape here. But we're also focusing on other hazards and stressors. You can go to the next slide, please. Outcomes, so increased understanding of climate risk and potential impacts, and prioritization of actions to address them, including nature-based solutions, community engagement that listens to and documents the range of needs and goals, and ideas of folks related to resilience, coordination and collaboration, and long-term capacity. You can go to the next slide.
Okay, just say also on that long-term capacity part of it. So we have that governance committee also, and we're always looking for more involvement in that. Julie is very supportive of that, and so are some of the folks in Louisiana Watershed Initiative District 4. But we would like to have more participation from folks with local governments, where we don't have it all mapped out yet, because obviously we would be the ones to be making all the decisions on that. But it is a 20 parish region and has 2 watershed initiative districts. So we're thinking about what that means down the road. 4 watersheds also we've got in it. So, that coordination and collaboration and long-term capacity building is part of it as well.
Yeah, and to make those outcomes a little bit more solid, like we said, it's a pretty long project period, but at the end of the day, what we plan to do is have a plan that has these prioritized projects, programs, and policies. And like Sharon said, part of this is going to be some type of toolkit for local government. It could also be tribal government, in terms of best practices and policies that other communities across the region have also adopted that may be appropriate for this region. We do have some funding for preliminary engineering reports. So if there are projects that we want to do some more, kind of in-depth look at those, we have some funding. Dr. Ahmad Habib, like we said, he's also working on this, so could, potentially support looking at a few different projects under different environmental scenarios, seeing what types of projects might really hold up for a long time in the future, or maybe we want to look at something with some co-benefit, something that, you know, really supports community, supports transportation resilience after a disaster, supports disaster recovery. You know, is really important for the local, you know, economy, regional economies, fisheries, etc. I think those are. Oh yeah. No, go ahead.
Mention the plan.
Okay. Yeah. Oh yeah.
And I'm not sure it's super clear on there at the moment, but one of the things that we're doing now also to support the understanding of the region and document what's already been done, trying not to reinvent the wheel, is looking at the many plans that are already in place in the region. So hazard mitigation plans, comprehensive plans, transportation plans,
Coastal master plan. Yeah.
where there are federal lands in the region, like national forest, and also any wildlife refuges, they have plans. And so just looking into those, partly to see what they've said about the hazards and about the actions, but also to gather that information about what's important in the region. And even the federal plans, of course, will have some community aspects, you know, to them where what's important is noted in those, as will hazard mitigation plans, the most significant assets in any parish or any local government that has those, or tried for that matter.
And to make it full cycle with all of your participants, we're also working with CPAC to help with that that part as well, so that we're all coordinating and not duplicating any efforts. You can go to the next slide. Oh, like we said, yes, there's a governance committee, and we're always seeking more folks to participate in that. And the idea is that this governance committee will guide the process of integrating community feedback into the project, and also will, you know, guide selection of the programs and projects and policies that we're going to be putting together as part of this plan. And, you know, we see this as eventually supporting some type of entity that can carry on into the future after this funding ends. And so we don't know, like Sharon said, exactly what that will look like. And that's where we're hoping, you know, it's of interest to y'all here to say, like, maybe this is kind of housed within the Acadiana Watershed District, or maybe it's, you know, kind of a special partnership between the two regions, or something else. So, you know, all that to say that we see this as being something that endures into the future and can continue to strengthen that coordination and collaboration at a regional scale. Next slide, please. And as we said, we also have a community committee, and that's made up of folks from local nonprofits, from arts and culture organizations, other types of community-based organizations, and they are helping guide the community engagement process. And one of the things that we're doing, because it's such a big region, is we're mapping out our connections in the region, and we're sending out some surveys. And I know, you know, there was a lot of QR codes thrown at everybody today, but I have a slide that has our QR code, and just to say that that links to a survey that we developed for this project to get feedback. And part of our strategy is like going to festivals and farmers markets and events and connecting with community groups, with clubs that have a membership list to get this out. And it's a really short survey. I actually encourage y'all to take it if you don't mind. It's like 5 questions, and it's just asking what is special about the community that you live in, what's special about the people and the culture and the natural environment, and what are your concerns about the future, and particularly what are your concerns related to extreme weather and those other hazards that we mentioned. Part of what you have in your packet is a flyer. So the flyer with the QR code, this is what we're sending out to the community groups. This is what when we, for example, we went to Festival of Acadiana Creole and we handed out flyers and asked artists and musicians to take the survey. And we also, I'm not sure if it's part of your packet, but there's another fact sheet that doesn't have the QR code, and this is more for folks on the governance side of things, just to explain the project. But anyway, I wanted to let you all know about these two flyers that we have. And at some point, we may be asking for more distribution of these through your networks.
Yeah, our committee members have the governance flyer,
Okay.
the back end community flyer. I just put out the community flyer, but I can send everything electronically so that people will have all the QR codes. So for all surveys, we need to
And they look quite similar. So if you're wondering why you have two of the same thing, you
Right.
don't actually have two of the same thing, but at a glance, it may look that way.
Okay.
Oh, and also we have, as was mentioned, this project is funded by NOAA. And there are other projects around the country. It was the Climate Resilience Regional Challenge effort that led to this funding. And they have a lot of other opportunities associated with it. And through NOAA, we have a fellow who is also doing a lot of the outreach around. So his name is Joshua Trosclair. So if somebody comes up to you somewhere and starts talking to you about the project, it might be Joshua. It's very much on the ground with the project.
Let's see, you can go to the next slide. Okay, here's the comparison with the Hydro Rise. So Tulane technically is the institutional lead for Southwest Louisiana, Central Acadiana project. Our region is larger, like we said. We're also working in the Sabine and Calcasieu, Mermentau areas, those watersheds. Our focus is all climate hazards, and we do have some overlap in terms of, because Dr. Ahmad is he's gonna help us when we get the climate information. He's gonna integrate that into the watershed models. So we both have these technical products that will be the H&H models and the climate projections. But our project, the end product, will be a regional plan, also this toolkit, preliminary engineering reports. We both have some funding in our projects for training. And so what we discussed with Dr. Habib was, if there's something that's really like the training that's identified through his project with y'all, that's really important or crucial, maybe we could utilize our funds to bring that to more parishes, to the Southwest area, or find, something that's complementary, but maybe not necessarily focused on flooding hazards, or something that's even more, kind of a capacity building for local government that isn't necessarily flood specific, but that's just a capacity need in general. So all that to say that we do have some money for training, and that's very much open to what folks need. I think that's all of I did questions. So we thought we would ask y'all while we're here, in terms of getting your input about how you see your work is connected to resilience. If you see your work is really tied to the governance side of things, and or community, and also asking about the capacity and coordination resources that would be beneficial to you. So if anybody has thoughts on those, would love to be in discussion with y'all, and also happy to answer any other questions that y'all have about the project.
I'm going to put you on the spot, Julia, to answer the questions for us. Get the ball rolling and people thinking about it, because I know you're involved in it. So,
Well, obviously with the Acadiana Watershed District, we're, the whole board, technical advisory committees are connected to resilience for, improve for flood risk and flood mitigation. But one of our mission statements too is to help also improve water quality, and that's connected. And I guess what you're saying earlier, this, and some of you might know this already, but I was looking for the connection because we have so much flooding here and lots of water. Then we have, the drought we had a couple of years ago, and now it's been very dry. But there's a connection that when there's a drought to flooding because the ground's so dry, and if we have a huge rainfall, just that rain like being really absorbed, and so a lot of runoff. So even though we're flood focused, everything is connected. So I kind of like that, looking at other hazards besides flooding, but those hazards are connected to flooding. So yeah, anyone else?
Yeah, that's a really good point. We're looking at those connections, and in a holistic way, yeah.
I spoke to you yesterday, so we kind of went over a little bit, in my capacity, which is not exactly sure what my complete job description is, but, Lafayette Parish is my area, design, development, drainage, and code. At the end of the day, my staff is responsible for advising and enforcing development code. So yeah, we're kind of tied to governance and the fact that it's a publicly adopted document with our codes for our parish. We've been doing it for decades and we've seen what is more effective. And what is actually feasible to implement. I mean, you can say, hey, we want this, which is awesome because as engineers, we want to design the Cadillac, but sometimes you can't afford the Cadillac and you have to look at what's practical and reasonable, especially in areas that are already developed where you already have people who have a certain amount of flood risk existing. So that's what I do an awful lot of all day. But these kind of discussions have been helpful because you see what other people are doing. I go to a lot of national conferences as well to try to make sure if there's any other ideas out there that we can look at them. Some of them we can adapt, but some of them, our soils and our hydraulic conditions are significantly different than New Mexico. So what works over there probably doesn't work here. But it doesn't, it still helps with that kind of what other options are out there, particularly on the code side. That's a relatively easy lift for a jurisdiction to do in a lot of ways because it doesn't cost a lot of money. But you have to kind of also recognize what the development community and homeowners can actually, afford.
Just to clarify, I'm not planning on bringing best practices from New Mexico. It's more the community engagement part of it that there are, some commonalities, although we do have flood.
I'll go. Since Jessica, I kind of do what she does, but on a state or district level, part of the state roads. It's not, our jurisdiction is pretty much just the state routes, making sure they're not flooding, making sure developments don't flood our state routes. And we're so limited that we have to trust that the parishes or whatever watershed district it is, or take care of the rest. All we can really do is make sure that our roads aren't the reason for flooding or.
A lot of your stuff is emergency evacuation and access to hospitals. So, their roads are typically the more important ones.
They're all important.
And I guess from my perspective, outside of the technical advisory committee, as an environmental consultant, we always go through the NEPA process. So we have to look at the socioeconomic impacts. We have to look at alternative analysis. We have to look at cumulative impacts, other projects in the area. So all of this gets wrapped up into our NEPA documents. It would be awesome to have a resource that we could just tap instead of going out to all the stakeholders, already have them all listed out for us and potentially their concerns prior to reaching out to stakeholders with just a basic introductory letter. I think that would be kind of neat.
Yeah, because from his perspective, from an
we have the MPO here, right? Not only Watershed District, but the MPO. So we deal with mainly transportation on the MPO side. His perspective, when you tell people NEPA, they have no clue what that is.
Right.
They don't understand why they're required to go through that for a project. I mean, I've had mayors say, well, I don't want to use federal funds. I'm just going to pay for the extension myself because I don't want the federal government to dictate or the NEPA process to dictate where that roadway is going to be, where I want it to go, right? And so they have no clue what NEPA is, that it even exists, you know. So there's a lot of education on that part that we as the MPO do whenever these communities want to build a brand new roadway where we know that full NEPA is going to be required, even from an environmental standpoint of, you know, widening a roadway. You may not have to go through full NEPA, but you may need an environmental assessment, right? And so it's educating those communities that those things are required. Also working with the communities from a transportation perspective to identify where their roads are that they use that may not be on an evacuation route for the state, but that their local communities use to evacuate, and ensuring that that roadway doesn't flood, number one. If it does flood, okay, then how do we make that roadway more resilient? What funding are out there to be able to lift the roadway or whatever else is necessary to make sure that it is passable for these communities?
Yep. I think one of the best things with all of the planning effort that's going out there is, like you said, to have a document. When I got my current position and I was cleaning up the office of my former boss and looking through files that probably hadn't been opened in over a decade, I found reports that were still applicable. And some of them were done when I was in elementary school. So I didn't know that they existed until I was cleaning up. And I've gone through the effort of cataloging what the name of the report was, who was it for, what was the result, what were the recommendations, and why were some of the recommendations not done? A lot of it was public opposition to several projects. Having that background information, because it's not going to stop raining in the next generation. It's going to continue. And the work that we've done, sometimes you've done some feasibility analyses or you've looked at something. Don't make the next generation look at it again with the same lens. If they go back and look at it, no, this was already kind of evaluated and this is why. So has any of those whys changed? Has something changed? And sometimes they do. Some things, sometimes the state highway moves.
So how who were against the project have
Right.
either moved on or passed away, whatever the case may be. And so the new people that come in are not as opposed to, I mean, we've seen that from a transportation perspective where, an entire neighborhood was against it. And you just wait 10 years and all those people have either moved or unfortunately, they're no longer there. And then the new people who were there are like, well, why wouldn't you do this? This makes all the sense in the world. We had a roadway, Settlers Trace extension, that when the 10 years prior or 20 years prior, the neighborhood outcry, it was a huge court case.
And then Target came in and then
Target came in and now they're like, well, I don't want to get to the main highway. I just want to leave my neighborhood and go to Target. And so hence it got built. So, again, to Dustin's point, like sometimes situations change.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's all really good things because like Sharon said, we're doing kind of a massive plan analysis. And that is part of what we're trying to understand with the various projects. But we can build that into our planning analysis as sort of like the context around plans and timelines and what conditions may have changed.
Yeah. Well, if through the LWI, Mr. Don Bergeron was talking about a plan that was done in the 60s for Langevin Parish, and some really great recommendations were made. That was in the I don't know if any of us were coherent in the 1960s, and somehow he knew that those existed, much less knew what they actually said. So there's a lot of historical data that I'm afraid we're losing some of it because just nobody knows it exists. And I don't think it's been categorized, cataloged. And a lot of that is from the Corps. They did a good bit of it, but I'm sure DOTD has some. I have some drainage studies from DOTD back in the 80s. I've seen some from DNR, there's some other resources.
We used to be a public works.
Yes.
office
Yes, you were.
before Department of Highways, for DOT, so the public works actually had a lot of studies and a lot of projects, a lot of old plans that are sitting in the building that used to be public works and is now DOT design. And it's paper and, my replacement wants all that paper gone. It's like, man, I just don't think we should throw it away.
Have the intern scan it for me. Scanning everything.
Yeah, great job for somebody.
You did, and
Yeah.
My intern starting after lunch. Give me a call.
Like literally, like that's how a lot of the public work stuff at LCG got done. They got summer interns for well. I don't even know if they paid them. Some
Yes,
of
we
these
paid.
people work just for credit hours. Yeah. No, serious.
I've had students scan things.
Yeah. They're only, they did, well, not the scan, they did.
They tend to be eager. They actually like read the first paragraph. So, and then they can tell you, look what I found.
Any other, yes, sir.
Open. Tommy McGinnis, sorry I came in late. Just in reference to old resources, NRCS had developed a lot of regional basin scale reports prior to the Twipper program. And a lot of them were paper, but they're PL 566 reports that might be worth looking into. I represent the Million Parish Coastal Advocate, and so we're down where Vermilion drains and the bay and the Gulf rises, and they meet each other in Vermilion Parish, and so that so we're always have we're going to have an eye on that, hoping that whatever plans come through or considering basically the spillway there, the watershed, the water will start. It'll come down to Vermilion and then start running east and west to find space to move into. So, and then that starts moving back north, going up Delton Canal and Young's Coulee and other areas. So all that needs to be considered. I've seen Dr. Beeb's report mentioned, and that y'all were working with him. He had done a pretty decent comprehensive report for that as well. So if this, reaching out to the smaller municipalities. Yeah. Thank you.
So thanks for that comment. We have Andrew Combs on our technical advisory committee. He's at USDA. The government shut down. He's been unable to come today, but at least we tied in. So good to get together with him too. For those we're familiar with the PL 566 program, but like historical maybe plans too. That as well.
Yeah, they were a lot. So there still are 566 plans, but they're very much more localized.
Yeah.
They were broader back before there were other big programs like this.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else?
And Sharon, we also don't need more participation in the governance committee, so maybe I could send that out to you now that you've presented this, and okay, sounds good.
Oh, yeah, and my contact, if anyone has questions, follow up, happy to chat.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank y'all very much. Appreciate that. We have our next presenters virtually online. They're called the Flood Resilience Planning Tool. I'll give you a little background. So our presenters, this is through the Center for Planning Excellence, or also known as CPEX. They're a nonprofit organization that coordinates urban, rural, and regional planning efforts in the state. They host a Smart Growth Conference every year. They are based in Baton Rouge, but their efforts are statewide. So we had a focus group in May, and most of our technical advisory committee members were part of that. And so CPEX representatives received input for this resilience planning tool specifically for our region. It's a holistic tool rating co-benefits on a quality level that we can also look at for future Acadiana Watershed District projects. And you've probably seen that word too, co-benefits, right? If we're gonna do something and it helps a specific thing, maybe this project can have other, improvements for hazard mitigation in general or economic development. And that can be used with our regional project criteria. So we welcome, we have, I believe, online Macy Williams. She's the resilience manager with CPEX. And then also Dr. Denise Reed. She's a coastal expert. I believe she's currently with UNO. But Denise she's part of the Hydro Rise project we spoke of earlier. I think she works with Sea Grant. She's been tied into everything coastal. So we're very glad to have. I'll turn it over to you, Macy and Denise.
Thank you all. I'm just going to pull up my screen and I'll ask that you confirm that you can see it. Can you see the slide deck on your end?
Yeah, we got it.
Okay, great. Well, I just wanted to say thank you all for having us back. This is the second time we're presenting on this tool. And we're really looking forward to just explaining the process, its application, and what this entire timeline has looked like over the course of, I don't know, Denise, what's it been? A year?
I don't know.
Something like that. It's been a while, so it's been a long time in the making. And thank you all for the preceding discussion, just highlighting the interconnectedness of our systems and the need proactive and informed planning. Again, it's Denise Reed and myself, Macy Williams, today. This presentation highlights the collaboration between the Acadiana Planning Commission and our team, where we developed a tool designed to support local and regional resilience planning. Our focus was on creating a framework that helps align strategies, evaluate projects, and foster comprehensive resilience across Acadiana. We'll walk through the goal, our approach, the tool process, and its applications today. And then, of course, we'll open it up for questions at the end. The goal of this effort was to create a practical decision support tool that links local projects and initiatives to broader regional resilience strategies. By doing this, we aim to make implementation more efficient and coordinated across jurisdictions. Ultimately, the two-step toward regional flood resilience planning tool helps ensure that resilience building efforts work together toward comprehensive regional outcomes. And we built this tool through a structured collaborative process, and it was developed jointly between APC, of course, and partially informed by the 2023 Louisiana Resilience Report. From that report, we pulled this multifaceted approach to the concept of resilience informed by the key pillars of our built, natural, and social environments. And so you'll see that it has robust built environment, vibrant economic activity, sustainable natural environment, and health and opportunity for all residents. So phase one, with this objective and this goal, phase one was drafting the tool. Phase two, we hosted a focus group workshop with a few of the TAC members whose feedback was incredibly helpful in refining the questions and the evaluation structure. Again, thank you to Alex, Richard, Brent, and Mohammed. Your input was so fantastic. And finally, we incorporated all of these revisions and finalized the tool and the supporting materials. So the goal was really to ensure that this tool reflects the real needs and practical insights from those doing resilience work and project implementation in the Acadiana region. And I'll pass it off to Denise to go over the tool, the process, and its applications.
Great. Thanks very much, Macy. And thank you all for having us today. As Macy said, great to be back and really interesting conversation already this morning. Thank you. So we have talked about this previously, and it's really kind of quite detailed in terms of its structure. And so we're not going to walk through all of those details today, but we're going to try to illustrate for you why we think that this approach that we've laid out is going to be really helpful at a regional scale. So Macy talked about it has an application at the local scale and at the regional scale. And the heart of this kind of planning is to say, okay, what kinds of things do we want to do? What are the activities that our local governments, our jurisdictions really want to get done that contribute to flood resilience? And what are the other kind of projects that they have in mind? So the whole process starts with evaluating individual projects, recognizing, as I think we heard earlier from the Tulane team, that a kind of regional plan is going to be made up of a lot of individual actions that can be taken that hopefully work together towards a broader goal. And that's obviously the same thing that we're looking at here. So what the evaluation matrix does at the project level is it poses a series of questions related to each of those resilience elements, those 4 resilience elements of the robust built environment, vibrant economic activity, sustainable natural environment, and health and opportunity for all residents. And then it gives you a kind of scoring card, and there's a little example at the bottom. I'll talk through that in a minute. So that you rate the project in relation to the question across a kind of four-point scale, if you like. Then it goes from green, yellow, orange, and red, as you see at the bottom there. So it's a spreadsheet tool, and there's space to identify what your answer is and then provide some justification for it. I think one of the key things about this is that we see this as evaluating everything that you want to do, every project that you want to put on the ground across resilience writ large. So if you've got an environmental project, you're not just answering the sustainable natural environment questions, you're also answering the robust built environment, the vibrant economic activity, and the health and opportunity for all questions. So every project gets looked at through all of the facets of these resilience elements. And we think that's important for a number of reasons, because I think it helps. It's like a thought-provoking tool, if you like. It makes people think about, oh yeah, well, maybe there is some benefit there, or maybe there is some impact. Maybe if we do this here, there is a kind of negative effect that we haven't really thought about in relation to resilience. And so that's really what it's designed to do, is to make you think about the projects that you already have in mind through a broader lens, and then track that thinking. At the bottom of the slide here, well, the output of it is basically putting a summary of what the project does. And so if you answered all the questions for a single project, then you'd come up with like a stoplight chart. You'd be able to see the areas where you were red and orange. You'd be able to see the areas where you were green and yellow. And so you'll be able to see how your project contributes to resilience through these different lenses, as well as through kind of questions about multi-jurisdictional effects and things like that. So the example we got at the bottom, and if one of those elements in the resilience report from 2023 is health and opportunity for all residents. And so one of the questions, I think there are 4 questions for this one. One of them is, to what extent does the project increase access to educational, cultural, and recreational opportunities? And so you can see there the answer choices, and basically you're kind of scaling it. It does good things for a large population. It does increase access. It only does it for a relatively small population. It does not increase or decrease accessibility. It's kind of neutral, or it decreases accessibility. And so there's this kind of scaling from something that's really good for a larger effect down to something that really has some potentially unforeseen impacts. And again, this idea of being a thought tool, trying to get you to kind of really think about the broader effects of the project. So the idea is that you would take a series of projects that you have, that you're thinking about, or that you've already got in various other plans, and you'd run them through this one at a time. Next slide. Macy, please, thanks. And so what you then end up with is a series of these evaluation matrices that we've just seen. You get a stoplight chart essentially for each of your projects. And then the key thing here, and this is why we think it's important and helpful for a regional planning effect, is to put it all together and then provide a way of looking at the collective impact effect of all of the different projects that you have across these 4 areas of resilience. And so you may be doing really good on natural environment. You may be doing really good on robust built environment. I'm trying to think of the things that we normally think about when we think of flood resilience: robust built environment, vibrant economic activity. Health and opportunity for all coastal residents might not always come to the top of the list, but as you put all these projects together, you may then see that there are areas of resilience where the collective projects that you have are really not potentially performing as well as they might. So next slide. So, what do you do when you put it all together? And I think I've just talked through this. Are you addressing all the 4 elements of resilience? And then, of course, next slide. If yes, then next slide. Then you've actually got, if you've then got a really reasonably balanced portfolio, you're addressing all these different things in one way or another, then you're on a good path towards a regional resilience plan. But obviously, next slide, if the answer is no, then essentially this shows you where you need to do more. You either need to go back and add additional projects. You've got areas of the region that you're really not helping in terms of 1 or 2 of the elements of the resilience elements. Or there may be opportunities to go back and modify projects, right? So, and one of the obvious kind of contemporary examples of that is where you've been thinking about, hard infrastructure for flood resilience that benefits the economy and benefits the built environment, but really doesn't do very much for nature and may even do negative things for that. And so that's the kind of example that we're all thinking about these days. But I think the idea that you can do this across all 4 of these elements and really make sure that you you think about the people, you think about the environment, you think about the economy, as well as thinking about the built environment. And so you can adjust and make this a kind of iterative step. And so you go through that iteration, next slide, and then hopefully you've then got a better or improved approach to regional resilience. So next slide. So what are the kind of advantages of doing this? Well, we think it gives a more holistic view. We talk about resilience a lot. We've been talking about resilience this morning. But what does that actually really mean on the ground? And we think taking this kind of broader perspective across these 4 elements really allows us to bring everything up at once if we can do this successfully. It's also, I think, I suggested earlier that I think it was really a kind of thinking tool to kind of draw out people's thoughts about what the effects or the broader effects of different projects might be. But it could be an educational tool to think about comprehensive resilience and what is required to get towards a comprehensive resilience effect. And I think one of the things on the right here that we initially thought about here, there were perhaps not so much at the moment, but there were a number of funding opportunities available over the last few years that really focused on resilience. And we felt that using a tool like this really allows one to demonstrate that you're thinking about resilience in a very, very broad way. You're not just trying to do what you've always done and add a resilience kind of, lens on it. You're really trying to think about what community resilience means kind of writ large. You might be your main focus might be flood risk, but you really want to address flood risk in a way that brings all of these resilience elements up and provides a broader kind of lift. And we think that being able to demonstrate that in some kind of structured way like this is kind of helpful when, you're writing these grant applications and really trying to demonstrate why you think you've got a really strong resilience plan. I think we've got a tool here that can really help do that. So again, we haven't gone into a lot of the details and the ins and outs because it really is it's really something that you need to sit down and kind of go through. And as Macy said earlier, we had a really excellent meeting that Kelia put together with members of the committee and really spent an afternoon going through each of the questions and thinking about it. And so we haven't gone into that level of detail today, but it's going to be available for you to look at and work with. And so we just wanted to give you a basic kind of introduction to that today.
Thank you, Denise and Macy. Yeah, it is a very thorough, maybe a little complicated, but very tool. But it'll be good for our purposes. And maybe it's something, this reporting and like a guide or maybe how to use it, we can like send out. And I like what they said. It's an Excel type of spreadsheet. And so you have that evaluation. I guess ideally you can have multiple projects and all these funding sources that can help prioritize those projects. Anyone have any questions for Denise or Mason? Comments?
I have a question.
Yeah.
Tommy, again, what is the availability of this tool?
Macy?
Yeah, I was just in. I believe Kelia, you and I talked about this being added to the APC website or maybe one of the LWI websites, but this will also live on the CPEX website in perpetuity. We are in the middle of restructuring our website, and so I'd say before the end of the year, this will be up along with the template tool that can be downloaded, as well as in instructions and kind of informational video that Denise and I will be recording to accompany the tool itself.
Yeah, so Macy, like there's something we could upload on our website and it's like instructional video, the guide. I mean, I have it now available, like, I could send it out. So, but the idea is that we'll have it on our website with the instructions, with the guide, so people don't, when you look at it, it's a little overwhelming. But it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, no, but that really is the point, that you didn't, this is complicated and you can really demonstrate a good case for all of the things that you're doing if you really kind of dive in and think about it. So that's the goal. I know you know that.
Any other comments or questions? Well, thank y'all. Appreciate y'all joining us. Thank you for the work.
Thank you.
Okay, next agenda item is miscellaneous updates. So there's some funding for the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. It's called the National Fish Passage Program. They had announced a NOFO, Notice of Funding Opportunity. The National Fish Passage Program provides technical and financial assistance to partners to remove in-stream barriers and restore aquatic connectivity. This is our overall goal. And but I'm bringing this up because it also looks at community safety and reducing flood risk that could benefit communities and benefit fish passage. Some of the programs, like I can send out the NOFO, like if anyone's or any parishes or municipalities are planning to do culvert replacements, maybe there could be some funding for this as it relates to fish passage. I just wanted to let y'all know about this funding opportunity. They said dam removals, culvert replacements, and floodplain restoration, as they can help fish passage. Sorry, I can't say that. And helping our overall goal of maybe reducing flood risk. The estimated total program funding is $10 million. The expected number of awards is 100. The award ceiling, I guess, per project would be $1 million. There's no cost share, which is amazing. This is the due date for the, I guess, applications are December 31st of this year. So a couple months left. But I could send that out to our parishes and board members as well. There's anything that they're planning on doing that could be tied in to this.
I would send that to Benson for sure. I'd be
Yeah.
ready parish state, yeah. With the levees they're building, they're gonna need some lock and dam structures, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have any projects specific from the watershed district's perspective, but we figured that maybe some of our communities, based on their projects, if they met the criteria that, this might come in handy.
That's a shovel-ready project.
I don't know, I'm not in Iberia Parish, but I bet he's got some in his back pocket and,
Yeah, I know that they've done a lot of work. I don't know what. And that's gonna be the other thing. That's what I will tell you. If you as a community, your community looks to apply for this, read the timeline. Because if it's anything like a transportation project, if you don't have a shovel-ready project, you will not meet those deadlines. But every grant program is different. So, but just read the timeline on it to make sure that whatever it is that you're gonna do, you can meet the timeline that they put forth.
Who can apply? Only government entities.
Do you know? I read through it, I just didn't know.
Yeah, you just have to read to find out.
I want to,
I don't think it's just government.
yeah, I don't think it's limited to that, yeah.
But the notice of funding opportunity will tell you if you're, who's eligible.
Correct, and then our contact with Louisiana Department of Wild and Fisheries told me about this program. He's tied in Robbie Maxwell as well, and I could send his contact information out. But I could, and the folks, so we can know who's eligible to apply. Another update is just kind of exciting. We're speaking about, talked about nature-based solutions. So Louisiana Watershed Initiative has different tools. They had a nature-based solutions opportunity viewer. Now they had contracted with the Nature Conservancy. Now they're having an explorer tool. They're gonna meet with the watershed coordinators. And then there should be some future training so that where can these nature-based solutions, different types be incorporated. And this is on a finer scale, which is also a very exciting tool to have. So just let you know that's something that's coming up. I'll be sending that information out as well. So that becomes available for like public training.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I missed the amount for the previous one.
Yes, so for the,
10 million.
National Fish Passage Program, they said the total program funding is 10 million. Expected number of awards is 100.
Okay.
And the award ceiling is $1 million.
That's nationwide.
Yeah, so federal, yeah, I know. And then no cost share, so I don't know, Also, next miscellaneous update, we had talked about this, I'm just putting it out there for a technical advisory committee. We have our project prioritization, our regional project criteria, we have this resilience tool, that maybe next year, for our next meeting or maybe the meeting following that, since we meet quarterly, we could have like a run through. Maybe we can pick some projects and try to see how easy or not to go through these tools.
Yeah, so we would like to, I mean, the whole goal is, right, at some point to come up with a list of projects that we can, when funding is available, run through the model. So what we would ask is that, when we're ready to do this, and I'll have Killia, like, if we decide to do it next meeting, we want to make sure the board approves the like matrix first. So we'll let you know if we decide to do it next meeting, but what we would want, or what we would ask of not only the technical committee, but also the board, is that you guys come with actual projects that you may want to do in your community, right? That may have, again, the whole goal is to have a regional effect, but we're also trying to be realistic, but maybe that it has a multi-parish effect, or a multi-city effect within your whatever parish you're applying for, right? We'll kind of craft what the rules of engagement are and let everybody know, but we want to be able to run this through and see, does the project prioritization matrix actually hold up, putting it through the test. And then from there, figuring out, okay, how much funding do we potentially have to maybe take that and actually run. The board would decide, okay, here are the top however many, here's how it scored. We have enough to fund X projects to be run through the model, or you make the decision on, based off of, the top, whatever it is. to be able to run those through the model. And then that way, you know, whatever the community is, has that when they, you know, either find funding or they use it for their local, you know, if they have local dollars that they want to spend toward it. So that's the kind of ultimate goal. How does it stack up against an actual project? So if you have actual projects, that's what we're looking for at some point.
And is that for the criteria or for the, or what was just presented?
Yeah, so for what we call the regional project criteria, that's kind of what we had decided on. The board's gonna vote, of course, using our watershed model. And its resilience still matrix, it's kind of like a step further.
Yeah.
Having those co-benefits, if you want to look at, you know, quality projects. I guess projects maybe that are kind of neck and neck, this is another way to evaluate it and prioritize that.
And it also will let you see some funding is tied to specific benefits, educational or whatever. And if you get a green light on Denise and them's one, you can kind of steer it that way. So.
And then also if you have projects, so we do have a regional project inventory online on our website, planacadiana.org. I've needed to send it out. We did some updates. This was probably been a year or two ago that kind of solicited technical people from the parishes for our board members to put projects, to add projects, whether it's project that's in progress or even conceptual. So that's something too for either our next meeting or the next projects that you have that want you to bring to the table, that also I could send out that we could have that these are projects in our project inventory as well. And these include conceptual projects. So we just have a list of what people would like to see or what municipalities are proposing. Any questions? Next slide, please. So for our next meeting, this is a schedule that we have, and this room is available. So I'm going to be sending out this information and calendar invites. We'll put these dates on the Acadiana Planning Commission website, planacadiana.org. This is what it looks like for now for our technical advisory committee. It'll be Thursdays from 10 to 12. Next meeting, January 22nd, and again, April 16th, July 15th, and October 50. I will be sending this out. Next slide, please. Do you have any public comments or any questions?
I have a question. Can you clarify on the gauges? Because I never have quite understood. They're the LWI gauges and then the Acadiana.
Yeah, so the LWI gauges, so the state had funded, they put like 100 gauges throughout the state for the watershed regions. And that's kind of been downgraded because they didn't have like the sustainable funding. Those are more, there's some flow and stage gauges. Then what we have been trying, it's been a slow effort, but we have the Acadiana Regional Gauge Project, which was prior to LWI. We received FEMA funding, HNGP funding for this. And so we have 8 parishes. It was proposed like about 100 gauges through 8 parishes instead of 100 gauges through 64 parishes like the state. So it's different funding sources. And we have a lot of, more stage gauges on the project and flow gauges. Flow gauges are very expensive. So that's kind of the difference. We're LWI statewide 100 gauges, the Acadiana Regional Gauge Network are the 8 parishes. And this is, like I said, pre-LWI, so that's why we don't have all the 16 parishes within Region 5 as kind of before that formed.
So how many gauges in our region currently for?
For LWI, you have to go to the LWI website to see which ones are.
So none of the Acadiana ones are operational?
No,
They
We're not. They haven't been installed.
And
yet.
there will be 100?
I think that's what we're,
so proposed 100, for question as to whether or not that many will go in actual being deployed.
And they are below?
There's a combination between stage and flow, but the majority of them, I would say more than 50% of them are stage gauges. And
Timeline.
so we're waiting on, the federal government shut down and we're waiting on some stuff from FEMA as far as the budget revision is concerned. So I don't have a timeline for you. If everything went, if the government had not shut down, like our timeline was to start the RFP process in January, but with FEMA, with the federal government shut down, I can no longer give you any type of timeline.
And how would they be funded to be maintained?
So Testimony Freshwater District is gonna take over the bulk of the operations and maintenance of them. The ones that are not within the Testimony Freshwater District's area, we are now going back to those communities and or agencies that we worked with on the first time for them to basically tell us, do they still want to be a part of it, and make sure that they're in, know that they will be responsible for the gauge as well as the long-term operations and maintenance of it. And so that's why there's a question as to whether or not we've not met with all of those communities as of yet, on whether or not they are gonna still participate. So,
Is that still in the $20,000 to $30,000 a year?
no,
Right.
that's for the LWI state gauges, because those were being operated by USGS. Yeah, sorry. So.
If I can, I'll hold up the website for Acadiana Planning Commission. And if you go under Watershed Management and Acadiana Watershed District, there is a page called Acadiana Regional Gauge Network, which has a lot of this information.
Okay, if you scroll down there, here's a map of the proposed locations. And kind of like Sharon and some homestead with projects, especially the gauges, we didn't want to duplicate any effort. So there's an extensive process that we went through, and local input and technical input. So these are proposed. And because, like Sarah said, the funding has been a while and funding costs have increased, so there is some available funding to add to this. So we're waiting for FEMA to approve that. And there are 2 permits from the Department now of Energy Conservation and a core permit that we need that approval. So once all those 3 elements are approved, then we could hopefully put out like RFQ or FQ to get the gauges installed in the ground.
So once these are all installed one
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
there'll be like one place you go on your website or somewhere.
So
that
it'll
we can
probably
see
be housed, it may be housed on multiple websites. I mean, we'll have a link on our website, Testimony Freshwater District will have a link on theirs. And I would assume that any other agency that's taking over the operations and the maintenance would place something similar to that on their website. The plan is to pull in to where you can see USGS gauges, the LWI gauges. Essentially, if we wanted to, and we've worked with Calcasieu and Mr. Terry Freeblue there, we could actually pull in and you could actually see his gauge locations and the data that it will pull out. So I mean, those, we got to get them installed first. So that's like the next hurdle before we can go to what the output will look like. So. Thank you.
Do you actually need core permits for that? The footprint's big enough to trigger a permit? Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
You have no idea. I know, we have to go through environmental for this too. It's been a learning experience.
Any other questions or comments, or maybe anyone? Or if anyone's online, if you want to come off mute or have a question. I don't think anything in the chat box. Okay. All righty. Any more questions? Would like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Jessica, anyone second Jessica's motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Right. Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good.
Ross, told me that you want RN. So he's late,
Right, yeah, yeah. That's it.
And they tagged me.
Okay.
Yeah. But I do big projects.
Another radio.
Out to the northeast.
In Abbeville or you were?
No.
Yeah, it's. I was like, well, my project.
Angela Charles, not part of the band.
Although I would say we do have.
Okay. Yeah, yeah.